Okay, good day students. In this lesson video, I'm going to discuss about piecewise function. And please focus on my discussion. Okay, so in this topic, this will be the learning objectives. Number 1, illustrate piecewise function. And number 2, use the piecewise function to represent a given situation. First, what is piecewise function? It is defined as a function with more than one subfunctions. Okay, so in our previous discussions and even in your junior high school, we are used to seeing functions written in this form. Say for example, f of x is equal to 2x plus 1. Another example is f of x is equal to 3x squared minus 2x plus 1. Okay, these are just some of the examples of functions. Okay, but in piecewise function, its form is different from the functions that we are used to. In this function, we will be encountering this form of function. Okay, since piecewise function is defined by more than one subfunctions, it means that we are going to expect here more than one subfunctions. Like for example, f of x is equal to 20. That's our first subfunction. Second subfunction is f of x is equal to 20 plus 3x. And our last subfunction is, say for example, 20 plus 3 times x minus 2. Okay, so in this example, there are 3 subfunctions. So we consider this example as piecewise function. And each subfunction has its corresponding intervals. Interval 1, interval 2, and interval 3. So we will be encountering this kind of function in this topic. Okay, so to continue, these graphs illustrate piecewise functions. Okay, so in junior high school, your math teacher in grade 8 discussed about linear function, and its graph appears like this. From the word itself, linear, it's like a line. Okay? In your grade 9, your subject teacher in math discussed about quadratic function. And its graph appears like this. It's like letter U. Okay? It could be the graph opens upward or downward. Okay? And this graph is called parabola. Okay, or parabolic shape. Okay, and in grade 10, your math teacher discussed about polynomial function, and its graph appears like this. It's like a wave. Okay, wherein there's more than one curve. Okay, but in this graph, if you are to notice, it consists of separate pieces. Okay, graph number 1 consists of 3 pieces of small graphs. Okay, it means that there are 3 subfunctions because each piece of graph corresponds to exactly one subfunction. So it appears like this. F of x is equal to one subfunction, second, and third subfunction. So, ganyan yan pag kada isang piraso ng graph, yun din yung bilang ng magiging subfunction niya. Okay? So in graph number 2, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 subfunctions. Okay, so parang ganito yan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? And in the last graph, there are 2 subfunctions. Okay? So that's how the graphs of piecewise function differ from the other graphs that you know already. Okay? But in this topic, we will not give focus on the graphs of piecewise function anymore. Okay? Our focus in this discussion is just to construct or create piecewise function. Okay, ganito lang mismo yung focus natin. Gagawa lang tayo nito. Of course, we have also the interval. Ganyan lang. Okay, as simple as that. So you'd better listen because as what I've said a while ago, this is included in your first quarter preliminary examination next week. Okay, so let's have first example number 1. In a certain country, monthly income tax is assessed as follows. Okay. There is no tax on income up to $15,000. Income over $15,000 up to $30,000 is taxed at 12%. And in the last condition, income over $30,000 is taxed already at 18%. So, if we are going to analyze the given problem, there are 3 conditions. Okay? But before we proceed, of course, the first thing to do is to understand and analyze the given problem. Okay? So, let me explain the given problem using Filipino language. Okay? In the first condition, wala daw magiging tax kung ang income ng isang tao sa isang buwan ay hindi tataas sa $15,000. Okay? We have there up to $15,000. So, pwedeng bumaba, hindi lang tataas. Hanggang lang siyang $15,000. So, pag ganyan yung sahod ng isang tao, walang tax yung salary niya. Okay? Before we continue, when we say monthly income tax class, yan yung binabawas sa salary ng isang tao buwan-buwan. Okay, kunyari ako, nagtatrabaho ako, bago makarating sa akin yung sahod ko, may konting porsyento ng pera yung mababawas sa salary ko. At yun yung porsyento na yun yung tinatawag na tax. And yung tax na yun mapupunta sa gobyerno para gamitin sa kung ano pa man na kailangan paggamitan nun. Like public roads or mga kung ano pa man na construction site. Okay? So yan yung tinatawag na income tax. So we go now to the second sentence. Pag yung income mo daw ay mas mataas kaysa sa $15,000, pero hindi tataas sa $30,000 kasi ang nandyan is up to hanggang sa $30,000, meron na siyang 12% na tax. Okay? And in the last condition, pag mas mataas daw sa $30,000 yung monthly salary mo, mas mataas na din yung tax, which is 18%. Okay, so in this problem, we are asked to construct piecewise function. Okay, and we are done with the first step, which is to understand and analyze the situation in the problem. Okay, the next thing to do is, this is very important, to identify the variables in the problem. Okay, when we say variables here in the problem, yan yung pinag-uusapan natin, yan yung focus natin. Okay, and after identifying the variables, we have to identify which one is the dependent and which one is the independent variable. Okay, so by analyzing the given example, we can say that the two variables are the monthly income of a person and the income tax. Okay, monthly. Yan yung dalawang pinag-uusapan natin. Kung ilan yung sahod and ilan yung income tax. Okay? And between these two variables, which one is the dependent variable? What do you think? Which one is the dependent variable there? Yung magdedepende sa isang variable. Yung income ba magdedepende sa income tax? Or yung income tax yung magdedepende sa income? Again, my question is, which one is the dependent variable? It is the income tax. Okay? Magdedepende yung ibabawas na income tax sa'yo sa kung ilan yung monthly income mo. So, ito yung independent variable. This is very important. Okay? Identifying the dependent and independent variables. Okay? So, we are done with the first two steps. So, we can now construct the piecewise function. So in writing the piecewise function, we will write here f of x. Okay. When we say f stands for the interest, or in other words, that's the income tax. While the variable x stands for income. Okay, we are asked to represent the interest, use a piecewise function to represent the interest in terms of the income. Okay, in other words, we have to create a piecewise function that represents income tax as a function of income. Okay, I repeat, income tax as a function of income. Okay, then put an equal sign. Next, draw a brace, and then in writing the subfunctions, we use the dependent variable. Okay, and in writing the intervals, we use the independent variables. So anong purpose nito? Ibig sabihin, magbe-base ka sa mga income tax para makagawa ka ng subfunctions. Okay? And para makagawa ka naman ng intervals, magbe-base ka sa independent variable, which is the monthly income. So, ibig sabihin, wala kang ilalagay na monthly income dito. Kasi ang ilalagay lang natin dito sa subfunctions ay yung dependent, which is income tax. Okay? So, I hope it's clear to you. So, now, going back to the given problem, how many conditions are there? Ilan ba yung given na conditions dyan? Kasi class, kung ilan man yung given na conditions dyan, yun din yung bilang ng magiging subfunctions. Okay? So, there are 3. Okay? One condition for this, one condition for 12%, one condition for 8%. Okay? So, we will now start creating the piecewise function. So, in the first subfunction, di ba, ang babasehan natin ay yung income tax. So, ang income tax daw sa first sentence or first condition ay no tax. So, ibig sabihin, our first subfunction here will be f of x is equal to 0. Kasi nga, wala daw tax. And para magawa natin yung interval, we will represent the income or monthly income by variable x. Diba? Ito yung nirepresent natin sa income, which is already stated in the problem. Okay. Kailan daw magiging zero yung tax mo? If your income is up to $15,000. So we can write that in mathematical sentence as x is less than or equal to $15,000. Okay? So, naging less than or equal to $15,000 kasi nga up to 15,000. So, hindi pwedeng lumampas pa sa 15,000. Pero pwedeng sumakto sa 15,000. That's why we have equal sign here. So, we already have the right endpoint of the first interval. But, since we are talking about income, we have to limit our interval to positive numbers only. So we have to also put a left endpoint for this interval. Siyempre, para maiwasan natin yung negative numbers, dapat yung dulong interval natin sa left ay 0. 'Di ba? Kasi pag lumampas ng 0 pababa, negative numbers na yon. So wala namang negative na salary. Okay? So we will write here x is greater than 0 but less than or equal to $15,000. Ma'am, bakit parehas naman yung bukas ng symbol pero itong una sa 0 greater than yung pakakabasa mo pero itong sa $15,000 less than. Okay, we don't always read this symbol as greater than or less than. The same thing here. We don't always read this as greater than or less than. It will always depend on the reference or the position of our reference. Since the reference here is positioned at the center, we will read this as greater than. Okay, while this one is less than. Okay, so in Filipino, we will read this as pag ang income mo daw ay mas mataas sa 0, pero hindi tataas sa $15,000, walang magiging tax. Okay? So we are done with the first subfunction. Alright, so let's come now to the second subfunction. So what will be the next subfunction? What do you think? You may pause the video for a while to think of your answer. Just try it. Okay, so again, we will consider here the dependent variable, which is income tax. So of course, in the second condition, we have 12%. So 12% when converted to decimal, it is equivalent to 0.12 because the decimal here will be moved 2 times to the left. Okay, that's how we convert percent to decimal number. We always move the decimal point to the left. And then we add 0 here. Okay, therefore 12% is equivalent to 0.12. Okay, so ito na ba sa tingin nyo yung magiging subfunction natin? Let's see later. Okay, sige. Continue muna tayo sa next interval. So, magiging 12% yung income tax. Magiging 12% ng monthly income tax nyo. Ay, sorry. Magiging 12% ng monthly income nyo yung magiging income tax. Kung, again, we will write X, if it is over 15,000 up to $30,000. So how are we going to write that? We will write here greater than $15,000. But less than or equal to $30,000. Ma'am, do we need, do we have to put an equal sign for 15,000? What do you think? Not anymore, because 15,000 is already included in the first interval. Specifically, it's the right endpoint. So, magkakaroon ng confusion kung maglalagay pa kayo ng equal sign dito sa second interval. Kasi nga, si $15,000 ay nasa first interval na. And besides, ang nakalagay sa condition, over 15,000. So, hindi kasama si 15. Okay? Then, up to. So, kasama si 30,000. That's why we have here equal sign below the less than. Okay? Plus, I'll give you a clue. Sa first intervals natin, we always position our symbols like this talaga. Okay? Hindi natin ginagawa ito. Let's say 20,000. Hindi natin ginagawa to, class. Lagi talaga siyang naka-open sa right. Okay? So, wag ma-confuse. So, going back, sa tingin nyo ba tama na tong second subfunction natin? Let's try. What if the monthly income of a person is $20,000? Okay, how are you going to compute for the monthly income tax? How are you going to compute for the monthly income tax? What do you do? Diba, sabi natin, babawasan ng 12% yung monthly income para makuha natin yung income tax. So, ang mangyayari, class, we will multiply 20,000, which is the monthly income, by 12% or 0.12. So, yan yung magiging income tax nyo. Wait for a while. I'll just get my scientific calculator. Excuse me. Okay. So, 12% of 20,000 is 2,400. So, if your monthly income is 20,000, then your income tax will be 2,400. Okay? So, class, what can you notice? Ano ba ang kulang sa second sub... Excuse me. Ano ba ang kulang sa second subfunction natin? Paano nga natin kinompute yung um, income tax? We multiplied 0.12 by 20,000. Eh, ano ba tong 20,000? Ano ba to? Siya 'di ba yung income tax, ay sorry, siya 'di ba yung monthly income natin? And yung monthly income is represented by variable x. 'Di ba ito? X. Kaya kulang tayo dito, class, ng x sa 0.12. So it should be 0.12x. Kasi dyan natin imumultiply yung income natin para makuha natin yung 12% niya. Okay? So, ma'am, bakit po, ma'am, sa first subfunction, wala kang nilagay na x? Kasi there's no need for us to put an x there. Because any number when multiplied by 0 is equal to 0 lang naman. But of course, to make it uniform, let me write or let me put an x also here. Okay, just to make it uniform. Pero kung wala yan, okay lang naman. Okay? So let us now proceed to the next subfunction or last subfunction. What do you think will be the last subfunction? It's 0.18x. Okay, if what's our third condition? You will be taxed at 18% if your income is above 30,000. So take note of the term over or above. So it means that we have to use greater than 30,000. Since over, hindi kasama si 30,000. Kaya walang equal sign dyan. And besides, it is already in the right endpoint of our second interval. So no need to put uh, equal sign below it. And mamamali kayo kung lagyan nyo yan ng equal sign. Okay? Ma'am, how about the left endpoint of this? Mostly of the intervals or mostly of the last interval of a piecewise function has no left endpoint. Okay? Kasi dyan na yung kumbaga last interval. Dyan na ipapasok yung mga mas matataas pa. Kaya okay na tayo dyan. Hindi tayo pwede maglagay ng 0 kasi yung 0 nasa first interval. Okay? So this is now the answer. We are done. Okay? Yan lang naman yung focus natin. Okay? But let's try to answer this question. How much would you pay or how much would be the income tax if your monthly income is $40,000? Okay? Ilan daw yung magiging income tax kung ang monthly income mo ay $40,000? So looking at the piecewise function that we've just created, find $40,000. Saang interval papasok yung $40,000? It's in the third interval. Kasi nga, 40,000 is greater than 30,000. So it means that we have to use also the third subfunction to compute for the required value. Okay, so we will write for x equals, f of x is equal to 0.18x. And since we are asked to compute for the income tax, if x is $40,000, then we will replace the variable x by the given value. 0.18 times $40,000. Itong left side, hindi naman to kino-compute. Kumbaga, this is just to indicate that we are looking for income tax at $40,000 monthly income. Okay? So, ito lang naman yung i-compute nating right side. So, 0.18 times $40,000 is equal to $7,200. So, using the piecewise function, you can find any values, okay, considering the given. Okay, so that's it for example number 1. Let me give you another example. What if your monthly income is $28,000? Saan pasok si $28,000? Wait lang. 30,000 na lang. What if your monthly income is $30,000? What would be the income tax? Saan pasok si $30,000? Ay, may 30,000 pareha sa second and third. Sa tingin niyo, saan siya dyan pasok? Sa second or third? It's in the second interval. Kasi Sa third interval, mas mataas na sa 30,000. Okay, hindi kasama dito sa third interval si 30,000. Nasa second interval siya. Siya yung rightmost endpoint of the interval in the second subfunction. Therefore, we will use the second subfunction to answer the required value. So we will write f of x is equal to 0.12x. Then we will replace the variable x by the given value. Equals. What is 12% of 30,000? It's $3,600. So that's how you solve for the required values using the created piecewise function. Okay? So let us now proceed with the next example. Okay. So example number 2. Suppose that a community tax law reads as follows. Make a piecewise function. So community tax law, it is similar to the first example. Okay? Our two variables here are this, annual gross earning and community tax due. Ito, halos parehas lang naman, pero ito kasi annual. When we say annual, taunan, kabuoang taunang sweldo mo. Okay? And ito naman ay yung community tax due or income tax. Pero again, taunan tayo dito. Okay? Which one is the dependent variable? Is it the annual gross earning or community tax due? It's the community tax due. This is the dependent variable. Para rin lang kanina. Okay, yung income tax magdedepende sa kung ilan yung nakukuha mo. Okay, so we can now construct the piecewise function. Okay, how many subfunctions do you think does this community tax law have? There are 3. One subfunction for this, one for this, and one for this. Okay. So, since wala namang variable na naka-indicate dyan, tayo na lang gumawa, tayo na lang mag-represent f of x. Okay? Yung nasa loob, yan yung parating independent variable. Okay? So, ito yung x, ito yung f. So, as what I've said a while ago, in writing the subfunction, we use the dependent variable. And in writing the interval, we use the independent variable. Okay, so ang ilalagay lang natin dito ay mga community tax due. Ito yung pagbabasehan natin dyan. And ito naman, since independent, ito yung babasehan natin para makagawa tayo ng intervals. Okay? So, what will be our first subfunction? It is, napakasimple lang, 0 pesos. So, we will just write here 0. Kailan daw magiging 0 yung tax due nyo or community tax? Kung ang annual gross earning nyo ay less than or equal to 120,000 pesos. So, if your annual gross earning is less than or equal to 120,000 pesos. And again, we have to limit our interval to positive numbers only. That's why we have to put greater than 0 here. Okay. Annual gross earning is greater than 0 but less than or equal to 120,000 pesos. Okay, again, the symbols are open to the right kasi palagi talaga yan dapat ganyan. If we have left and right endpoints. Okay? How about the second subfunction? This is somewhat different from the previous example. Okay? Baka isipin nyo, ilagay nyo lang 1%, 0.01x. Hindi ito kagaya kanina. Okay? Let us try to understand the second row of the table. Second condition. Okay? 1% of income over 120,000 pesos. So, let's assign other term for this over. Okay? Instead of over, 1% of income exceeding to 120,000 for better understanding. Okay? Again, so we will base our second subfunction in this. Okay? So 1% of income exceeding to 120,000 pesos. So, what do we mean by this? Ang kukunan lang daw ng 1% ay yung sosobra sa 120,000 pesos. Okay? Say for example, your annual gross earning is um 150,000 pesos. Hindi itong 150,000 pesos yung kukunan ng mismong 1%. Hindi ganyan. Okay, kasi ang nandiyan, ang naka-indicate dyan ay exceeding to 120,000 pesos. So, ibig sabihin, kung ilan lang yung sobra sa 120, yan lang yung kukunan natin ng 1%. So, we have to subtract 150,000 to 120, it's 30,000. So, yung 30,000 lang daw yung imumultiply sa 1% or yung 30,000 lang daw yung kukunan ng 1%. Yan yung idea dito. Okay? So, parang nabigay ko na sa inyo yung second subfunction. Just look at this. Look at this. Okay? So, therefore, we will put here 0.01 to be multiplied by ano tong 150 na ito? That's the annual gross earning, and we represent the annual gross earning by a variable x. So, papalitan natin si 150 ng x. So, we have here x minus 120,000 pesos. Okay, again, ito yung annual gross earning. Yan yung babawasan natin ng 120 para yung natira, yan lang kukunan ng 1%. Okay, siguro naman naiintindihan. Okay, that's our second subfunction. So what will be our second interval? So we will again write x is what? We have there more than 120,000 pesos but not over 240,000 pesos. So mas mataas kaysa sa 120,000 pesos pero hindi tataas sa 240,000 pesos. So it's very easy. We will just put here greater than 120,000 but less than or equal to 240,000 pesos. Okay, again, we will not put an equal sign here since 120,000 pesos is already in the first interval. It's in the right endpoint of our first interval. Okay, so no need to put an equal sign there. So let's come now to the third subfunction, third and last subfunction, for example, number 2. So you may pause the video for a while to think of your answer. Okay, I hope you've taken a pause. Okay, so in our third subfunction, we will write 0.05 times x minus 120,000. That's our third subfunction since ang kukunan daw ng 5% ay yung mag-exceed sa 120,000 pesos. Okay? So, our last interval would be, we have there keyword over. Mas mataas kaysa sa 240. So, x is greater than 240,000. So, di ba? Sabi ko sa inyo, yung mga unang intervals, ganito talaga yung symbol. And yung nasa last interval, mostly ganito na lang yung symbol. Okay? So, that's our second piecewise function. We are done. Let me just give you a follow-up question. What if, wait, let me erase this part. What if your annual gross earning is one, baka 150, 180,000 pesos. O saan magfo-fall yung 180,000 pesos? Is it in the first interval, second, or third? It's in the second interval. Therefore, we will use this subfunction to answer the required value. So we will write f of x is equal to 0.01 times x minus 120,000. Okay, then replace the variable x by 180,000 equals 0.01 times 180,000 minus 120,000. Okay, so first thing to do is to subtract these two values. 0.01, 180 minus 120 is 60,000. And multiply it by 0.01. It's 600. Tama ba? Tama. Okay. Therefore, if your annual gross earning is 180,000 pesos, you will have 600 as the income tax. Okay? So, as simple as that. Okay, let us continue with our third example. I don't know where this is coming from. Itabi na lang natin. Okay, so example number 3. A jeepney ride costs 7 pesos for the first 4 kilometers. Okay. And each additional kilometer adds 1.50 pesos to the fare. So let us first analyze the given problem. Analyze the situation. Kunyari, nakasakay ka sa jeepney. Sa unang 4 na kilometro daw, ilan daw yung babayaran mo? 7 pesos. Okay? Based on this, 7 pesos for the first 4 kilometers. For the first 4 kilometers. So, paano pag 1 kilometer pa lang yung nababiyahe nyo? Ilan yung babayaran nyo? 7 pesos. What if 3 kilometers? Ilan yung babayaran? 7 pesos pa rin. Basta pasok sa first 4 kilometers, you will have to pay 7 pesos only. Pero, kung lumampas ka ng kilometro, may additional daw na 1.50 kada kilometro. Okay? So, paano pag 5 kilometro yung binyahe nyo? So, 7 plus 1.50, di ba? So, magiging 8.50 yung babayaran yung pamasahe. Paano kung 6 kilometers? 7 plus 1.50 plus 1.50, ilan yan? It's 10. So, ganyan yung ideya ng problem. Okay? So, that's our first step, analyzing the given problem. Next, identifying the two variables. What are the two variables there? May nakalagay na dyan na variables. Jeepney fare, represented by lowercase letter f, and the distance represented by lowercase letter x. So there are two variables, the fare and the distance. So pinag-uusapan natin yung distansya and yung babayaran nyo. Okay. Which one is the dependent variable? Yung distansya ba magdedepende sa pamasahe? O yung pamasahe magdedepende sa distansya? Dependent variable is the fare. Ito yung dependent. While this one is the independent. Okay, so we can now start constructing the piecewise function. So how are we going to write that? F, or the jeepney fare, as a function of the distance. Okay, equals. How many subfunctions do you think does this problem have? How many conditions are there? There are only two conditions. Pag first 4 kilometers, and the other one is pag lumampas na sa 4 kilometers. Okay? So what do you think will be our first subfunction? Okay, di ba? Dependent variable yung pinagbabasehan natin ng subfunction. And independent naman yung binabasehan natin sa paggawa ng interval. Okay. So, ibig sabihin, para makagawa tayo ng subfunctions, ang ilalagay natin dito ay yung mga pamasahe. Mga pamasahe. And para makagawa tayo ng interval, ang babasehan natin dito ay yung mga distansya. Okay? So, our first subfunction will be what? A jeepney ride costs 7 pesos for the first 4 kilometers. So, napakadali. 7 pesos daw. So, lagay natin dito 7 pesos. 7 pesos yung babayaran nyo kung ang distansya nyo ay greater than 0 but less than or equal to 4. Right? Ma'am, hindi ba talaga included yung 0? Hindi po. Kasi, di ba, kapag hindi pa naman umaandar yung jeepney, pwede ka pang bumaba. Hindi mo naman kailangan bumayad. Okay? Pero once na umandar na yon, magbabayad ka na ng 7 pesos. Okay? That's the idea in this first subfunction. Okay. So, hanggang 4 kilometers, that's why we have to put equal sign here. Okay, ma'am. Do we need to put a variable here? What do you think? Sa tingin nyo, class, kunyari, nag-travel ka ng 2 kilometers, ilan nga yung babayaran mo? 7 pesos. Kasi nga, pag first 4 kilometers, 7 pesos lang yung babayaran. Paano kung maglagay ka dyan ng 7x? Sabihin natin ang first subfunction mo ay 7x and you travel 2 kilometers. Then you have to multiply 7 by 2 kasi may variable kang nilagay eh. So magiging 14. Magkakaroon ng conflict. Hindi tutugma sa first subfunction natin. Okay, so we don't need to put a variable beside beside 7. That's our first subfunction. How about our second subfunction? Sige nga. 7 pesos daw yung unang 4 na kilometro. Pero kung lumampas ka na dyan, magdaragdag ka daw ng 1.50. Pero ang babayaran mo lang yung sobra sa 4 kilometers. So, ang magiging subfunction dyan ay 7. Yan, kunyari nakapag-travel ka na ng 4 na kilometro. So, may 7 pesos ka nang babayaran plus 1.50. Siyempre, we have to put a variable. Saan natin ilalagay? Hindi pwedeng 7.150 lang kasi nakafix lang yan sa 5 kilometers. 7 plus 1.50. So, maglalagay pa tayo class ng x minus 4. Kasi magdaragdag kayo ng 1.50 kung sobra lang sa 4 kilometers. Kaya meron tayong x minus 1. Okay, so let me erase it. Okay, we will write here 1.50 times x minus 4. Ulitin ko, nagkaroon ng x minus 4 kasi ang imumultiply mo sa 150 ay yung sobra lang sa 4 kilometers. So let's say for example, you traveled 6 kilometers. 6 kilometers. Siyempre, yung 6 kilometers will be replaced here. So we will have 7 plus 1.50 times 6 minus 4. Ilan yung babayaran dapat dito? Di ba kanina na-compute natin na 10 pesos. So itatry natin kung makukuha natin yung tama. 7 plus 1.50, then yung sobra sa 6 kilometers, di ba dalawa lang naman? Kaya makakakuha talaga tayo dito ng 2. Then imumultiply natin yan sa 1.50. It's 3. Therefore, we have to pay 10 pesos if we traveled 6 kilometers. Okay? So that's the purpose of writing this x minus 4. Okay? So sana nakakasabay. Okay? Don't worry kasi next meeting, I'll be giving you another set of examples. Okay? So for our last interval here, ang nakalagay dyan, ano nang gagawin nating second interval? We will use this second subfunction if the number of kilometers is already more than 4 kilometers. So we will write here or we will put here x is greater than 4. Okay? Pag mas mataas na sa 4 kilometers, ito na yung subfunction natin. Okay? So, let's try solving some problems using the piecewise function. What if you traveled 1 kilometer? How much would you pay? 1 kilometer, saan ba pasok ang 1 kilometer dyan? Sa first subfunction. Therefore, we will have to pay 7 pesos only. How about if you traveled 10 kilometers? Saan pasok si 10? Siyempre, sa more than 4. So, if x is 10 kilometers, we will use the second subfunction, which is this. So, replace x by 10. 10 minus 4, 7 plus 1.50. 10 minus 4 is 6. Multiply 6 by 1.50. It's 9. 9 plus 7 is 16 pesos. So, pag malayo-layo na, gagaya ng 10 kilometers, 16 pesos na yung ibabayan nyo. Okay. Class, kung nagbabiyahe kayo ng jeepney, kung sumasakay kayo ng jeepney, tumingin kayo sa sa likuran ng driver. Hindi sa mismong likod ng driver ha. Sa likod ng upuan ng driver. May nakalagay dyan, kasi sa amin sa San Felipe na jeepney, merong nakalagay na similar sa ganto. Naka-indicate kung ilan yung magiging pamasahe nyo. Tingnan nyo lang. Okay? So that's it for this lesson video. I hope you were able to understand the discussion. Okay? Thank you so much for listening.